Monogatari is a series where supernatural entities called oddities are used as metaphors to explore the personal issues of various characters. However, they are pretty cool, and so today I'm going to explain each and every one of them. Though once again I must stress this video will contain major spoilers for the series, and won't feature any oddities from the off or monster season, so no golems, sentient fabric or werewolves I am afraid. And so this is what we shall discuss today. So if you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell, as I cannot explain to you how much such a small action can do for this channel. And if you want to support this channel even further, then perhaps check out my Patreon. Anyway, on with the video. Before we explain each individual oddity in this series, let's first clear up what an oddity exactly is. The concept is a little vague, but the general idea is that an oddity is an idea or concept given shape by the thoughts and feelings of humans. This can be as a folklore creature such as a vampire, which had stories told about it to the point it became real, or can be manifestations of a specific person's ideas, such as with Ogie or Kaku. Since they are born from people though, oddities can only exist through the presence of humanity. If they are not witnessed or talked about, they will grow weak and disappear. This is the reason Kishot left Antarctica, because penguins cannot spread oddity stories. In essence, oddities exist because people think they do, and so an oddity is whatever a person thinks one is. Vampires are the quintessential oddity, as well the protagonist of the series, Aragi, is part vampire. Vampires are immortal oddities which suck the blood of people for nutrition. They have extreme physical abilities far above any human, along with fast regeneration, an energy drain and the ability to generate matter, and or change the shape of their own bodies. Kishot also shows the ability to destroy objects with just a glare. In exchange for such power, they also have a couple weaknesses. The big one is the sun that can turn them to ash. Silver, garlic and crosses burn them. They don't have reflections, can't cross flowing water, and can't enter a room uninvited. Although, as said by Kishot, some of these weaknesses like water and doors can be overcome with just pure power. Vampires are dangerous oddities as they regularly eat humans and other oddities. They kill humans not just for food, but also to keep the legends of vampires alive, and so to keep their own power high. Vampires, by sucking the blood of a person, can create a thrall, a servant such as how Kishot sucked Aragi's blood and turned him into her servant. However, a thrall can return to humanity by sucking the blood of their master, killing them and returning to humanity. Now there's a few vampires we meet in the series. First is obviously Aragi, who becomes a quasi-human after sucking most but not all of Kishot's blood. However, he can gain more vampiric power by letting Shinobu suck his blood. Then there is his sometimes master, sometimes servant, Shinobu, the former Kishot Acceleri and Hata de Bleda. She is the oddity slayer, the king of oddities, and the most powerful oddity to ever live. In the Kabuki Monogatari timeline, she even turned the entire globe's population into thralls, but due to her mental state at the time, they were more akin to zombies than vampires. These are called jianshis. Usually they exist when a thrall loses their master by sudden death, and they mindlessly carry out their former master's wishes, such as to make more thralls. They're a lot weaker than regular vampires and are always in a state of decomposing while simultaneously regenerating. Now besides Araki though, Shinobu did have one other proper thrall. This is Shishiryu Seishiro, the original oddity slayer. He was a samurai from 400 years ago who was turned into a vampire by Kishot and then killed himself, as 90% of vampires die by suicide. Dramaturgy is another vampire, one who hunts his own kind. However, he is much weaker than Kishot and her kin. He states it would take 2 days to recover from a hit by a concrete roller when Aragi almost hits him with one. He uses his powers to turn his hands into flambergs and has other vampire powers like turning into darkness and enhanced abilities. Now besides full vampires, there are also half vampires. Now it's never really stated definitively, so they could either be humans that weren't fully turned into vampires, or the natural offspring of a human and a vampire, but regardless they are between the two in terms of power. Half vampires are weaker than normal vampires but are less affected by the weakness to sunlight, and to seem immune to the burning of silver and crosses. Age seems to be a bit strange of half vampires, since episode is 6 years old but looks and acts like a teenager. However, this could be the result of the vampire's ability to transform their bodies rather than some specific trait of half vampires. And while episode is our only example of a half vampire in the series, but is someone who hates both humans and vampires since he was unwelcome in both worlds. There are a couple more vampires in the off-season and monster season, but we will leave them be for now. And just because I can't help but analyse, vampirism is a metaphor for Aragi's own concept of his intensity as a human. The weight crab or heavy stone crab is a kami or god. As such, it exists everywhere at once and so it can be called upon at any time. This kami in specific is a crab god that steals the weight of its victims. The tale originates from the mountain ranges of Kyushu, but is told in other Japanese regions, where it's also rumoured to take the form of a hare or a beautiful woman. The form though means little, as it is the effect this god has that is important. It takes away one's weight, and with it their emotions too. The burden someone carries is taken away both physically and emotionally. The way crab's literal Japanese name is Omoshikani. Kani is a play on words, as the Japanese word for crab, kani, is similar to the word for god, kami. Omoshi can then be broken down to the words heavy, omai, and shi, which could reference either to cling, shigamitsuku, or bonds, shigarami. So it's a crab god that takes weight and bonds from someone. Now it should be noted that the weight crab is not malicious, and if you ask for your weight back, it will give it back. It is a god, remember, so it is neither good nor bad. It is just what you ask of it, what you pray for. If you are in distress and need help, it may take your burden away, but if you want it back, you need just ask. We see this in the series of Senjukahara, who due to her family falling apart, her trauma and her illness, was burdened with many things and needed the crab to cut off these things from her to bring her some relief. She then faced the crab again to save herself, taking back on the memories of her mother that had burdened her in the past. Senjukahara then wasn't afflicted by this oddity but helped by it, hence why she thanks it when she takes her weight back. Spirits in Monogatari come in many forms, but in general they are the souls of humans that persist in some form after death. The first spirit we'll think of in the series is Hanakawa, who is a lost cow. She was a young girl who snuck out from her house on Mother's Day to visit her mother. However, she was tragically run over on the way and died. Her spirit though persisted and became an oddity, the lost cow. Since she could never make it to her mother's house, she acts as a spirit that leads astray those with no intention to go home. She never got to go home, so she keeps others from doing so as well. She doesn't age, and so despite having been an oddity for over a decade, still looks the same age as when she died. Only when brought to her mother's house by Aragi and given closure does she ascend from being a lost cow, being promoted to what she calls a wandering spirit. However, as shown by the appearance of the darkness, this wasn't her oddity purpose, and hence she had to choose to either go back to being a lost cow and fulfilling her purpose, or pass on to the afterlife, which she does. Another spirit we meet in this series is Lord Devil, aka the ghost of Numachi Roka. Numachi Roka was a girl who died and became an oddity. However, she herself did not know she had become one, and so when it was made clear to her that she was dead, she was able to move on to the next life. Numachi as Lord Devil acted as a collector of misfortunes. She acted as a one-way therapist to people with problems. She would hear their problems, let them vent all their frustrations and anxiety, and then she would do nothing. People often feel better just by talking about a problem. Often that, in as of itself, is enough to make their problem go away. So the Devil's clients get peace of mind, and Lord Devil in exchange gets their misfortune. It is what keeps her going. She's an oddity fueled by misfortune. She says she does so to prove others are more misfortunate than her, and then advances to collecting the body parts of the Rainy Devil. Since Numachi committed suicide as a result of her leg injury that stopped her playing basketball, it is only when she got to play against her rival Kanbaru that she is able to pass on, leaving behind all the misfortune she collected, personified by the Devil's corpse, as such things are not needed in the next world. They were just the things that kept her burdened to the mortal plane after death. Our third and final spirit though is one who moves freely between the planes of life and death, and this is Tadatsuru. He was a specialist, a college classmate of Oshino and the lot. However, in order to pursue beauty, his obsession with it, he turned himself into an immortal oddity. He died, his soul now permanently living down in hell in the next world. However, he can still interact with the living world through the many dull bodies of himself he made. He is a spirit that's confined to hell, but even so can still interact with the living world. Presumably, as long as he has dull bodies left to inhabit, he will forever remain this way, forever dead, but also forever able to live on the earth, at least in one form or another. Oh, and it seems to be the case that even when in his puppet body, he cannot touch the ground. This would indicate that part of his soul really is inhabiting these bodies, as it should be not his body but his soul itself that received the curse. The Rainy Devil was an unnamed oddity created by the mother of Kanbaru, Guy and Toei. It is a personification of her Jungian shadow of her other side, a part of her that she cannot see but is still very much a part of her. This oddity then is an oddity that takes the form of her other side, attacking her in order to make her confront the side of her that she refuses to acknowledge. In Toei's case, she chose to bind the oddity with a name of the Rainy Devil, and then killed it, separating its body parts up into the corpse pieces we see in the series. The Rainy Devil then is not the original name of the oddity, just one Toei placed on it. The real Rainy Devil, the name Toei borrowed, is instead a lesser devil, with a raincoat that binds to its user. which yes is pretty similar to how we see it in the series, but that's only natural. When Toei named it, it gained the characteristics of the legend, and you probably could only give it such a name since it was similar to the Rainy Devil to begin with. The corpse parts then are just the body parts of the Rainy Devil after it was killed. It is just the mummy of an oddity that was cut up. It is suggested that if the parts are reunited, the devil may return, but when apart they are not that dangerous, as when someone comes into contact with a devil part, they can choose to make a wish on it, or more specifically, to take it into their body, like Hanbru did with the devil's left arm. The corpse parts give you enhanced strength in said body part it has possessed, and also forces you to act on your true desires. This is obviously a leftover effect of when the devil was a whole, a shadow that forced Toei to confront her true nature. Hanbru mistook the devil's arm for a monkey paw and thought the oddity granted 3 wishes, but the oddity doesn't actually work like this. It doesn't grant 3 wishes in an unintended way like a normal monkey paw. Instead it makes the possessed person fulfill the wish themselves in accordance to their own natural feelings. For example, Hanbru wished to be faster, so the devil allowed her to attack her faster classmates. It wasn't that it granted the wish in a weird way, it just instead spoke to Hanbru's true wish. It wasn't to be faster, she was just angry at her classmates and wanted to hurt them, so the devil let her. She may have thought she just asked to be faster, but that was not her true wish. In exchange for the soul, the devil grants these wishes. It sees both sides of a person, it can see the anger and envy in one's heart, and uses that to grant the wish, and once all 3 are granted, the devil takes the soul and body. In other words, the person is turned into the devil. However, if the wish cannot be granted, or if the wish ceases to be a wish, then the devil cannot do anything and just remains. However, as said by Oshino, in this case, after a few years, it will just disappear of its own accord. The Jagirinawa, or snake cutting rope, is a snake oddity that constricts its victim's body, slowly crushing them. It is invisible and causes hands to bleed when grasped. The fangs of this snake oddity also carry a venom so strong it can even hurt a partial vampire like Aragi. Now the Jagirinawa is considered a simple curse. The 2 we see attack Sengoku were created by a fake charm sold by Kaiki. Sengoku turned down the boy who confessed to her, and so both the boy who confessed to her and her friend who also liked him placed curses on her, using these charms sold to them by Kaiki. Now Kaiki is a con man, so these charms were not the real deal. They were so weak they usually wouldn't trigger anything, let alone a curse. However, Sengoku went about dealing with this curse the wrong way. She killed many snakes at a snake shrine, and as such strengthened the curse instead of removing it. This is why she was attacked by the snakes. With the help of a counter charm given to her by Oshino, Sengoku removed the snakes from her body, but they were not killed, so escaped, returning back to the people who cursed Sengoku to begin with, to presumably attack them next. The Sawari Neko is a cat oddity that takes the form of a white tailless cat. They possess whoever comes across them and cause mischief. When the person is possessed, they gain silver hair and cat ears and become very feline, but don't seem to remember any of the time in which the oddity was in control. Like a vampire, they have an energy drain, but it is nowhere near as strong as a vampire's. They are considered a low-level and rather weak oddity, the only exception being the particular Sawari Neko, the possessed Hanakawa, only to be consumed and modified by the girl and turned into Black Hanakawa. Black Hanakawa is a new breed of oddity created by Hanakawa. When she was possessed by the Sawari Neko, the oddity became consumed by her. The cat did not possess her, she possessed the cat. The Sawari Neko gained the knowledge of Hanakawa as well as her memories, and so became an oddity far more dangerous than a regular old cat. She became an oddity capable of defeating even Oshino Meme. Now the reason Black Hanakawa came to be is down to Hanakawa herself and her coping mechanism. Hanakawa is talented, she is a human among humans, and so when she felt stress or envy or anger, she didn't react like a normal human. No, she created oddities. Hanakawa bottled up all her feelings. She crushed them down deep inside her heart so she wouldn't have to face them, so no one would see them. She tried to maintain the image of a perfectly normal girl, so didn't let any of it out. However, everyone has a limit, and so when the Sawari Neko attacked her, she couldn't take it anymore. She cut off those feelings from her heart. She physically removed the feelings that burdened her and shoved them off onto Black Hanakawa. Black Hanakawa's sole job is to take away Hanakawa's stress and to vent it for her. Hanakawa literally ripped off a piece of her heart, and that became Black Hanakawa. Black Hanakawa may be an oddity, but she is still a piece of Hanakawa. She is still as much a part of Hanakawa as Hanakawa is herself. The part of her that embodies all her pent up stress. First the stress of her living situation, and then the stress of her love for Aragi. Black Hanakawa vents this stress by attacking the sources of Hanakawa's stress, first her parents and then Aragi. It is a way for Hanakawa to not be consumed by her bottled up emotions without having to confront them. It is an unhealthy way to cope, hence why Hanakawa has to accept Black Hanakawa back into her heart, become one with her, and then deal with all the emotions herself without the need to rely on oddities, something she also has to do for the oddity she created to vent her envy, Kaku. Kaku is another of the oddities created by Hanakawa in the same way as Black Hanakawa. However, whereas Black Hanakawa was a new breed of oddity created from an existing oddity, the Sawari Neko, Kaku was a completely new oddity made without any basis. She is the personification of Hanakawa's envy and hence is literally burning with envy. She targets and burns down the sources of Hanakawa's envy, that is her nature as an oddity. However, unlike Black Hanakawa, Kaku is a separate entity. Hanakawa doesn't turn into Kaku, Kaku exists and acts independently. For this reason, Kaku does not have Hanakawa's memories or knowledge either, and as she says, she has no interest in where she came from. That said, she is still a part of Hanakawa, a part of her she cut off from her heart, so she wouldn't be consumed by her own envy. This is why Hanakawa has to take Kaku back into herself to become whole again, as Kaku is as much Hanakawa as Black Hanakawa is and as much as Hanakawa herself is. Also, Kaku, although being an original oddity, may have had a slight basis, one Hanakawa unconsciously used when creating her, and that is the Kasha, a burning chariot that takes corpses of those who died due to accumulating sin and takes them to hell, but Hanakawa herself does dispute this fact. The Fire Reef Bee is a fake oddity, and well, to an extent all oddities are fake, but the fake oddity in this context is one that has no basis in legend or stories. It is one that does not come to be due to stories being told of it. The Fire Reef Bee was an oddity created not by legend, but by Kaiki. It is not the real thing, not a oddity born from legend. Kaiki just nicked the name and gave it to an oddity he created. The Fire Reef Bee then, at least the one we see in the series, was made by Kaiki as a fake oddity. The Fire Reef Bee draws its origins from the 15th chapter of an Edo period book called The Illustrated Compendium of Eastern Discord. In this book it was attributed with being the cause for a great incident where many people were stung by a bee that could not be touched and had their bodies wreathed in flames. However, such an event never occurred, it was all fictional. There is no origin for the legend of this bee except for the writings in this book. It was fabricated to make a good story. Perhaps a real naturally existing Fire Reef Bee does exist somewhere, but the one Kaiki made was one born not from a tragic event which was blamed on a bee, but instead from a fictional story someone told about a tragic event. The bee, real or not though, is still an oddity and so still exists to an extent. Karen ends up stung by it and is afflicted by the curse of the bee, a fever that renders the victim unable to move. It is said that in more severe cases the victim would perish from this curse, but the sickness brought by this oddity may actually be suppressed by people with stronger bodies. The effects of this bee though are reduced by Aragi, who takes on half his sister's pain, and they're said by Kaiki would fade away in a couple of days. As well, it's not a real oddity, it's just a fake. The Shida no Tori, or Undying Bird, is a supernatural cuckoo. Basically, it is an immortal oddity that constantly reincarnates. When the oddity is coming to the end of its lifespan, it possesses the womb of a pregnant woman, fusing with and becoming the woman's unborn child. The oddity is then born as a human child by the mother and is none the wiser to its true existence. The cuckoo just grows up as a human and lives as a human, and then dies as one too, possessing a new host when it does. The only difference between the Shida no Tori and a normal person is that the cuckoo is immortal and so regenerates from any wound. However, the bird itself has no memory of regenerating and won't remember any normal fatal wounds it gets. Oh, and the hair grows a lot faster than normal person's. The only example of a Shida no Tori in the series is Skihi. She was born as the youngest daughter of the Aragi family and grew up as just that. Only when Kagane tries to exterminate her does Aragi find out her true identity. However, she herself never discovers her own oddity nature and keeps on living as just a human. Tsukumogami are tools that have been used for 100 years and gain spirits or kami within them. The only example of one in this series is Ononoke Yotsugi, and she isn't really your typical example of a Tsukumogami. The corpse of a girl who died young at just 12 years old was used as a tool for 100 years and then was revived by an occult research club to create an immortal oddity named Ononoke Yotsugi. Now, how a corpse of a 12-year-old girl was used for 100 years? Who knows, but it was, and then was used as the base for a new oddity. Those involved were each cursed of creating Ononoke, paying compensation for their decision to bring back the dead. Ononoke, despite being a revived corpse, is entirely different from whatever her body was like in life. She is an entirely new being. Age-wise, her body has the appearance of a 12-year-old girl, but its actual age is 127, Ononoke herself having been alive for 15 years. As a corpse though, she has superhuman abilities. She can take her own body apart and morph in various ways, such as making her fingers enlarge using unlimited rulebook. By making her feet big very quickly, she can also jump long distances. Her biggest weakness though is fire, since it can burn her still very much human flesh. She is the familiar of Kagane, and so is her Shikigami. This gives them a link, which is funny as she is most closely linked to Kaiki, with the key in this name being part of her own. She works together with Kagane as a two-man cell, exterminating immortal oddities, and for a while she is on Tsukiki monitoring duty, and so lived in the Araki household posing as a plush doll. She also cannot physically emote, hence she can never make a posed look. Although we've already discussed the weight crab, there are other gods that appear in the series, mainly the various enshrined gods of North Shirahebi Shrine. Presumably the original god of the shrine was a snake god not dissimilar to how Sengoku imagines Kuchinawa. However, the next god to be enshrined after this snake god was Sengoku herself. By ingesting the snake talisman which Gaien had gifted to Araki, Sengoku transformed into an oddity, a snake god. As a snake god, she resided at North Shirahebi Shrine, but grew bored by her existence as a god, to the fact she got excited just to play Cat's Cradle or to be visited by Kaiki. Her abilities as a snake god are vague, but she is immensely powerful. Her venom can easily incapacitate a part vampire like Araki, and using her snakes as spears she could easily pierce his heart. It's also stated, though not confirmed, that in this form she could destroy the entire town if she pleased. She is only defeated when Kaiki convinces her to return to humanity, to pursue her true dreams and not waste away her days as a god. She allows herself to be tricked, and while she's under the effects of the Slug Tofu, Kaiki removes the talisman, the source of her power. Hachikuji replaces Sengoku as the next god of North Shirahebi Shrine, and although she is a snail, not a snake, she is fine in the shrine since, as already said, snakes have a weakness to slugs, and while slugs are just snails that lost their shells. It's unclear how much power or what abilities Hachikuji possesses as a god, but she presumably has some extreme abilities, though likely not to the same extent as Sengoku. The Slug Tofu is another fake oddity created by Kaiki. It is a slug oddity made from tofu, therefore it is a oddity manufactured by Kaiki. Though it's unclear if there is any legend he bases this oddity on. When consumed, this piece of tofu changes the victim's nature to resemble a slug's. The reason this is useful comes down to the Japanese game Mushi Ken. It's the earliest Japanese Sansokumi Ken game. Think a bit like rock, paper, scissors. In this game you assume one of three hand signs which each either win or lose to another. So in this game, slug beats snake, snake beats toad, and toad beats slug. So in that context you can now understand that the Slug Tofu counters the snake talisman in Sengoku and helps turn her back to human by countering the divine energy of the talisman, enough for Kaiki to pull it back out of her. The Slug Tofu technically does appear again in the series, but that's in the off season, so I won't mention how chunky it ends up getting. Classroom 1-3 is a oddity that exists within Naoetsu Private High School. It is a ghost room that exists on the 3rd floor. On the map it doesn't seem to exist because physically it doesn't. It is an oddity that replicates the appearance of the school's Classroom 1-3 during one particular point in time, just before 6 o'clock on July 15th. The Class 1-3 trial where Oikura Sadachi called a class meeting to work out who cheated in the maths test. Araki ends up trapped in this ghost room alongside Ogie once she leads him inside. Inside she forces him to confront his past in the room of the trial, and also to remember Oikura. It is made out that once you enter you are trapped in this ghost room, but this was actually just a little lie on Ogie's part. The reason Araki could not leave is just because he is a vampire and needed to ask permission to leave. This oddity was created by Ogie using the matter creation powers of a vampire that she gained from Shinobu, the same power she used to recreate the Cram School during the Ogie Dark arc. Even after the events of the Ogie Riddle arc, this ghost room remains. This is because whereas a normal oddity would usually disappear after fulfilling its purpose, this oddity is just something made with Ogie's powers. However, how one enters the room is a bit of a mystery, as Araki cannot find the door again, even though, as shown in the off-season, it still exists. Oceanic Ogie is the first oddity created by Araki Kaomi, and is a physical manifestation of his other side, of his Jungian shadow. Now, the reason Araki gained the ability to create oddities is quite a long-winded explanation. Basically, the Gaien family have a natural ability to create oddities. They are oddity creating specialists, and so Toei created the Rainy Devil, her own Jungian shadow. This oddity died and its arm became Kanbaru's monkey paw. Seichiro absorbed a part of this oddity when he energy drained Kanbaru, and he was then in turn eaten by Shinobu. Since Araki and Shinobu share a link, some of the energies from Seichiro, which include some of the Rainy Devil's energies, ended up in Araki, granting him oddity creation abilities. He also encountered the darkness which sowed the seeds in his mind for Ogie even before he gained the abilities to create her. With all this, he manifests Ogie as his shadow, as an entity which criticises him to expose his own shortcomings and flaws, his own quasi-darkness. She forces him to overcome his flaws by either destroying them by killing her, or accepting them and saving her, him choosing the latter. Her survival reflects that he understands the nature and his own flaws, and that overcoming them by addressing them is what he believes is right. Since she was made from the energies that shinobu passed on to Araragi, which came from Seishiro, she has access to all the abilities that he possessed, such as a vampire's regeneration and matter creation, a lost cow's barrier creation, something she uses to keep specialists out of the town during a bakemonogatari, and thought manipulation. And she took the name Oshino not only to act the part of Oshino's niece, but also to tie her to Shinobu, who many of her powers originate from. The Mirror World is an oddity created by Araragi in the same way he created Ogie with the inherited powers of Toei. We see him access this mirror world when he is pulled into a mirror, but in reality he instead pulled the mirror out and applied it to the world itself. The entire town became possessed by an oddity, by the mirror world, an oddity that manifests regrets into reality. The possessed town showcases some strange effects, like books being reversed and people exhibiting the opposite of their normal demeanour, their hidden sides, often one tied to their secret regrets. As the mirror shows the other sides of every person present, the selves they keep hidden, this often is in the form of a person's oddity affliction, since these oddities in themselves often reflect a person's hidden side. On a more technical level though, it is explained that a normal mirror reflects only about 80% of light, 20% instead being absorbed, and so Araragi, in a state of anxiety about leaving high school behind, with so many regrets, unconsciously pulls back out the 20% of light that is absorbed and forces it back out onto the town. He saw his frozen reflection in the mirror, literally stuck in the past, and so pulled out the 20% of light, the regrets of everyone. This oddity is only defeated when Ogie uses their matter creation and manufactures a 100% absorption mirror. This mirror is enshrined at North Shirahebi Shrine, eliminating the mirror world from the town, as it's a god's job to accept everyone's regrets. And it is also possible that the reason Kaoru still has dreams where her mother visits her after this oddity vanishes is a direct reference to the after effect of it, since Toei existed in some form inside this mirror world. So that is every oddity that appears from bakemonogatari to Zoku or bakemonogatari explained. Technically a few odd supernatural creatures are mentioned here and there across the series that I didn't mention, but they don't actually appear, so don't worry about it. And well, if I did miss an oddity that actually appears in the series, then hound me in the comments for being an idiot, I guess. Comment of the week comes from Lurker, and I'm glad I made you appreciate Seishiro, as he really is quite a great but underrated character. And if you want to go the extra mile in supporting this channel, then consider pledging to my Patreon, where for as little as £2.75 a month, you can get your name at the end of the video, like Ikari Desu, 7SO, Ringjack9696, Dewey, and General Tonyos. So with all that said and done, I've been Seth the Sin, the Deadly Sin of Geek, and I'm signing out. Stay safe, everyone.